Welcome to the Derek Loudermilk Show. This is episode 368 with Michael and Jamie Thornhill. So Michael and Jamie Thornhill are my guests today, and Michael has been on the show. He was on a couple years ago talking about his retreat center down in the jungle, and he did some live channeling for us at that time, and we learned about plant communication. Today we're also joined by Jamie, who is a gifted intuitive in her own right, and we get the chance to experience some of her spiritual skill during this interview. And we hear from both of them together how they left behind their retreat center in the jungle, and now they are joining us from the Sacred Valley in Peru. They have a new retreat center that they are just establishing to also do plant medicine, but in a way where they can bring in all the other modalities that they have learned over the years, including trauma-informed healing and other healing skills that are outside of the curandero lineage from the ayahuasca lineage. We also get just lots of great stories and insights about things that are not ordinary and what it means to be working with these plant allies and starting to understand the multi-dimensional nature of ourselves and reality. And so if you like to have your mind expanded, then this is probably a great episode for you. So without further ado, here are Michael and Jamie Thornhill. So, did you guys get married? Since I talked to you, Michael, last.
Yes, we did.
Congrats.
December 11th, a couple of years ago. I remember.
We keep forgetting the number date. So the fact that he just spun it out that quick.
Oh, nice.
Pretty impressive.
You just channeled that right out. My wife and I, we celebrate our anniversary every month, the 13th, because we got married on Friday the 13th. So whether it's Friday the 13th or not, I'll say like, happy anniversary, happy Friday the 13th, even if it's like a Saturday or something. It's fun though. So it was just a couple of days ago, she sent me a text because I was sleeping in that day and I woke up and was like, happy anniversary. I was like, is it? No, it's just the monthly thing. So how did, so you guys are partners in all kinds of things, but how did you guys meet?
We met in the jungle. We met in Iquitos. Michael was working retreats for another organization and training and practicing, the tradition of plant spirit healing. And we had both taken the same course, but at different times. And I came back to learn more and train. And I was actually training with Michael and our dear friend, Mike. And so we started working together. And what was it, about 2 weeks in? About 2 weeks into working together, I realized one day when I was talking to him, I was like, oh, I think I have feelings for this guy. Like this is not just I'm like, this guy really knows what he's doing. I really respected him and thought he was awesome. And I was shadowing him. I was like, I'm going to follow him. And then one day I realized, oh, he's not just a great mentor. Like, I have feelings for this guy. So that's how, at least on my side, that's how it happened.
Wow. Do you feel like you guys were destined to meet in some sense?
We have a very strong connection, like I think many people who come together do. And we just absolutely adore each other, and have a lot of fun with each other and challenge each other a lot. And so we are, there's a very strong connection. We tend to have an entrainment of things on the personal level and on the work level, that when we work together, there's this sort of symbiotic thing going on with us energetically, where we know where it's going, whose turn it is to talk, who's talking about what. So there's this thing that happens, and I'll speak for myself, although I think I'm speaking for both of us. We just really get a kick out of each other and love each other a lot. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we when we met, we fell in love straight away, and then started doing work on each other of healing
Consciously and
trauma, bringing
unconsciously.
everything up, going on this absolute roller coaster of just like right through the depths of our being and just activating each other multidimensionally in service. And, just had this whirlwind experience, which continues to go. And we're both Capricorns. So that's an experience as well.
Well, what's I don't know much about the different signs. What does that mean?
Well,
Capricorn.
the Capricorns are basically two rams that are kind of like a ram that's kind of like going forward. And the positive aspects of a Capricorn, what I would say, or at least in my opinion, they're positive, that is to be very dedicated, very hardworking, very focused in what one wants, and to be able to kind of manifest and bring that through. And at first we were like two separate Capricorns trying to bring through our own individual vision. And then when we got married, I made a song that says, a Capricorn wedding in December, the day that we'll remember, the day the Capricorn surrendered. And that's how we celebrate our anniversary. So it's
I love it.
honoring to us to remember to surrender to each other.
Yeah.
What fun. Yeah, my wife and I, we lived in the same town for like a year before we ever met. It's this really small expat community in Bali, and we had like 100 friends in common. And we were at the same ecstatic dances. We were at the same house parties, taking the same yoga class. We never even knew that it existed until we like cleaned up the mess of our past relationships to some degree. And then it was like, boom, just threw us together. She actually had dreams from our son, our firstborn, who was like, hey, guess what? I'm coming. I'm going to help you meet your husband, your partner. And I'm orchestrating this all together. So get ready. And then like off we were. So it was very, very fast as well.
How did you guys, did I miss how you guys actually met?
Yeah, it was at a cacao ceremony. And it was so cool because I sort of heard her speaking, and it was like I didn't see her yet, but I was like, I had this like tingle on the back of my neck. I was like, oh, who is this that I have to meet? And I like, she's in some ways very big energy, but also kind of like keeps herself and shy a little bit. So I had to like try to find her and interact with her. Our first interaction, she was blowing what is that tobacco stuff?
The
Rapé up my nose, and I was like, I hate this. I'm never doing it again.
Nice.
I just had another woman on my show, Marin Azoff, and she does medicine work and teaches this vocal transformation modality. But she and her partnership with her partner Patrick, they sing and pour together and do all kinds of stuff together. It's really special. Like I got to see both of them operating together. It seems pretty rare to have two couples like working together on the same mission like you guys.
I think for us, when we work individually in our sessions and other opportunities to work individually, we're obviously very dedicated in our own work, and that's very powerful. But I feel like when we work together, we're greater than the sum of the parts. It's something that's really special. We're very entrained. It's like one mind. It's like when we're channeling, there's the same message coming through in different tones and different ways. And it's like our heart is like one heart. And it's a really great opportunity for us to kind of feel the oneness of consciousness and feel that entrainment, that it's kind of like that one heart, that one mind. So it's an absolute blessing for us to be able to do this work together. And, since when we met, as Jamie was saying, we were doing work in service to others in facilitating ayahuasca retreats in the jungle. And that really has been at the core, or one of the cores of the work that we do at Casa Galactica, is to be able to bring that medicine through us as we see it in our own particular viewpoint of the world and non-duality and how we're here to be of service. And it's just an absolute blessing to be able to work together and to be able to share this life and our business and all of our passions together.
I want to ask you about how you guys solve business challenges together, but you guys are, so Casa Galactica is not just one place anymore because you're opening a second retreat center. Is that right?
No, well, our plan when we moved to Iquitos was to work from the community there and the retreat center and our house there. But this past year, and I don't know how much Michael has been in touch with you with this, but this past year, we just basically felt that it wasn't the right place. So we let it all go. We gave away our house. We stepped away from the retreat center and the community and everything. And we really felt like it wasn't the right place. And we've come back here. So we do not have another retreat center in the jungle. This is us now putting down roots here in Pisac in the Sacred Valley. And this coming back here this time feels like, oh, okay, it was here. It's been here. It's actually, we were here before and we left and we're like, oh, okay, it's here. So the retreat center's here in the Sacred Valley. It's in Pisac, and it's the only place the only location, the only building, the only retreat center we have.
Oh, wow.
I just quickly add to that as well. It's our time in the jungle. We've been in Peru for 5 years and we've trained and we've worked and we've studied and we've learned and grown so much there. And it really feels to me like, and us, that the seeds want to go to another location to be able to step out into the work here in the mountains that you can see behind and to be able to bring that magic here. So it just feels like it's a painful process of letting go of the community, of the relationships, of being there, of, where we met, where we first worked together, of all those dreams and memories, our house. But, it really is a letting go of something to allow something greater to blossom from that. So it's been a very, very transformative process for us, especially just leaving behind the community and the house and all of our aspirations there. But through that process of kind of coming out of the fire of transformation, it feels like very fertile ground here for us to be able to help and assist people.
What was the limitation there for you, or what is it that can expand now that you're here?
You want to answer?
You go ahead. We might have different answers. Yeah. You go ahead.
For us here, the quality of life to live somewhere long term is amazing. The internet is much better, and we also have so many clients around the world that we work with through our online sessions, our online courses and mentorships, that for us to be able to serve that larger picture, which we came into that really in the pandemic when everything went online. We were like, okay, we really need to be in a place where the internet is stable and serving us. In the jungle, not so much. And then there's also a lot of the people that we work with in terms of our plant spirit healing work, a lot of people who are drawn to us through our own background of healing abuse and sexual trauma and all of our trauma-informed care work that we do, we tend to attract and work with people who've gone through the mill. They've gone through a lot of deep, dark stuff. And sometimes going out to the jungle in a super, super remote location, like a boat down the river for 2 hours with mosquitoes, with bugs, with kind of like more like shantier type conditions, even though it's still the retreat center we had was great, it's just still it's a bit of a shock when you kind of come from living in a city and you're in the middle of the Amazon jungle. So for us, it feels like it's also a more comfortable and welcoming and inviting space for more of the types of people that we work with that perhaps weren't able to kind of really commit to going into the jungle because different fears come up about being there. So it really feels like a balanced place for us, and on a personal level, there's really great takeaways. So the food's pretty nice here as well. So
yeah. And what was the moment? So I've had similar experiences where I'm like holding on to a thing that I've been doing for years, and then it's like kind of obvious that it's time to move on, but I'm like, yeah, but that's what I do. Could you talk about, the finally deciding like, all right, we're gonna make this move to a different place, uh, how you knew it was time, and when you actually made that decision?
I'll answer that. Yeah, Derek, first of all, like very observant or perceptive question, because that was the toughest thing we had to face. We've honestly, we had this moment where we both looked at each other and we recognized we've put all this time, energy, money, hopes, dreams, passion, love into this thing that we felt was like for us. And then we had to decide, does it still feel like it's for us? And then there was a no. And then it was like, okay, can we make it for us? And then, like Michael said, being Capricorns, we're like, we can, we can do it. We've got the determination and endurance. And we were like, do you want to do that? And it was like, no, no. And we felt by saying, no, we're not going to go out and force this and make this happen. We could, and it would probably take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years to really get it to the point that we want it to. And then, but we felt that by that time, it would be even more over than it is now. And we thought, do we want to go waste 2 or 3 or 4, 5 years? And I say waste. Do we want to go put energy into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years for something that's already feeling like it's not for us anymore? And we said no. And we said, okay, then what? And then again, being who we are, we're like, okay, well, then what's next? Because we're really good at taking action on what's next. And it was like the energy felt like intuitively, nothing's next. And we're like, well, and what are we doing? And it was like, and then we got faced with this opportunity. Can you just sit in the discomfort of everything collapsing and going to ashes? Can you just sit in the unknown and wait for something to bloom again and not try to take off and steer it or make something happen? And we both consciously felt that opportunity arising, and we both consciously chose, let's just sit in the unknown and see how this goes and see what arises. And so what would you say, love? About 5 or 6 months we sat in the unknown?
Yeah, felt like a lifetime, but yeah, about 5 or 6 months.
And it was uncomfortable, Derek. And that's what I was saying. Like, I've had a very interior last 12 months of just allowing myself to process through all the personal things, all coming up, all the patterns, all the distortions, all the limiting beliefs, all the everything, and just letting it be uncomfortable and continuing to pray through it, and then having the fun times in between. But then we finally in October and November, we kind of looked around and was like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to move on. We can say goodbye to Iquitos. We can say goodbye to everything we've put into this place, all the things we've learned, all the love we've shared, all the opportunity, all the experiences, we can close this chapter consciously. It's time to move on. And so it was really big, really uncomfortable. But what has shifted in us that we realize now that we're here and gone through it, that we can feel happening now as we're making choices moving forward, we're not as scared of the unknown. It's like, what do we do right now? I don't know. Let's let it sit for a few days and see what arises, versus, oh my gosh, we're uncomfortable. Let's try to make something happen. So we've been a lot more attentive, allowing, I guess I want to say, sort of waiting for the path to unfold or show itself versus trying to carve a path. And so something has dug into us on that level now, that our navigating has shifted over to this much more open and receptive versus taking action and steering it and carving it. That's how I would describe it. That's a great question. It is tough because there's identity with it. And, oh, this is who I think I am. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's also not who I am. I'm something beyond all of this. And it's going to change again. And it'll change again. And it's always changing. And how could it not? Because the God in the universe is so infinitely creative. So yeah, interesting lessons, tough lessons.
Yeah.
I've had I had a similar experience where I was like, okay, I run this coaching business, and for all of 2021, it didn't feel like the right time to run the mastermind, and so I was just kind of like every month I'd like push it back another month, and it was kind of waiting in a sense, um, but I really like to keep learning and moving fast, even if I'm waiting in another aspect. So we did a lot more on the podcast, a lot of really fantastic guests. Was kind of my version of waiting, was just to like learn even more, which is a
Sure.
crutch in some ways. But I think a lot of people are experiencing this, like for being forced to have faith in the universe, and being forced to rely on inspiration rather than what they have always done. um, and it's
Mhm.
this uncertainty, this place of trusting and being uncertain but still okay.
Yeah, I think it's like, as we shifted through these last couple of years collectively, there's so many different structures that I feel like individually and collectively that we'd been relying upon for the sense of safety and sense of security. And when that on the external, for in some parts, is kind of dissolved or not available, it's really an invitation for us to find that trust at a deeper level. And I think, as the conversation's been talking about, that doing or taking action on something is something that can give a great sense of security of, I'm doing it, I'm taking action, I'm being important, or I'm being proactive. And it's, for us, it was definitely a noticing of like, okay, when we sit still with that, without taking action, without creating, what is there? And for us, it's also a deep opportunity to really have a lot of the limiting beliefs that would come up that maybe was subconsciously playing into our creation, to really just sit with all those and just allow them to be there raw, and just to feel them. And as we're creating now and coming out, it just feels like there's like so much more space, so much more authenticity. There's so much more opportunity for us to express ourselves without us trying to be someone or something else, or fit within a tradition per se, to be able to fit into an identity which we created for ourselves. So that dissolving of that, it just feels like there's just infinitely more opportunity for us to be us. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what everyone's here to do, is just to be yourself. So it's exciting. And yeah, and honestly, being here in the Sacred Valley, the community that we have here, the friends, the mountains, the Incan ruins, the Machu Picchu. We've not actually been to Machu Picchu yet, but it looks good on the photos when it comes up on Windows 10. So, but yeah, it's so beautiful, absolutely amazing nature, and we're just so grateful to really feel our roots here, really grounding. And it just feels like a potent and powerful place for us to allow that medicine to be shared through us in whatever way and form that may be from the unknown.
What's the community like there? How big is the town settlement, and like how many local people versus expats?
Yeah, there's a mix. There's a very intimate group of expats here. So because medicine being completely legal, ayahuasca being completely legal in Peru, it's an opportunity for us to share this work with people in a way that's not going to cause any issues with the police or law enforcement. So there are varying different retreat centers here, but then there's all sorts of different activities like kirtan, ecstatic dance, different markets. And yeah, there's I wouldn't say, there's probably probably about 1,000 plus expats, I would say, here. Maybe it's difficult to tell from our
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, no, and then and then here in PSAC in the Sacred Valley, there's probably like 4 or 5 sort of pueblos or villages or towns, and PSAC is one of those towns.
Hmm.
PSAC is one of the smaller ones. The village itself, the very center of the city or the village itself, is probably about 1 square mile. If that, and then the town itself where people live is probably about 2 or 3 square miles. And then there's the outskirts of and living in the mountains and things like that. So there's a lot of space, but then there's a lot of opportunity in the village to eat really nice food, grocery shopping, all of the local, the indigenous culture and textiles and blankets and alpaca, ponchos and all of the tapestries and artistry and fabrics and everything. So there's a lot of culture here too. So it's this nice, for us, it's a really nice blend.
Yeah, and I'd say there's a really nice integration between the local community and the expats. The tourism comes into the village, and gives opportunity for people to sell their art, their work, their crafts. And yeah, it's a really special place. And we're very glad and happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm just gathering some intel. It sounds similar in size a little bit to where we lived in Bali, which was like a artist cultural hub. There's about 30,000 local people and about 1,000 maybe boules, expats. So that's cool. I dig it. How is it, running a business, not being Peruvian? Is it fairly easy to set things up and navigate that?
Yeah, it's a process of understanding. Fortunately, both Jamie and I, here comes the Capricorn traits again, had both run our own successful businesses prior to joining forces together. So we luckily had a lot of experience from running a business. And I'd also run a business in Germany as well. So I'd also done that in a different language before. Thankfully, we have an absolutely awesome team of accountants and lawyer and everything that we needed to get things set up. So we are very fortunate to have all of those support systems in place, really to build a foundation in alignment with our values of integrity and trust, being able to get everything set up into the system to have a foundation for us to grow. We've been very fortunate to find the right people. But as with anything, there's always adjusting to any culture, understanding how different tax systems work, et cetera. But yeah, it's a great place to do business. It has a lot of opportunities. We're so fortunate to be in such a beautiful place that supports this deep cultural heritage of medicine work that is here, and allows people like us to be able to share our own tune of that, or whatever that may be. And the business systems, it might sound strange in the West. It's like it's set up, to run an ayahuasca business that we serve medicine. It's just, it's just part of the process. It's no different really to if you wanted to run a bakery or an office. So it's the system is set up for running retreats, which is really, really great, because it really helps us to do that in a way that's completely above board, that anyone that comes here knows that, okay, yeah, we're actually going to a country that supports ayahuasca, that it's a part of the heritage here, and that's completely legal. So I think that gives a lot of sense of safety and security to people who come and work with us, that they can realize, okay, I'm not going to get in any trouble. This is not illegal. This is completely fine. It's all above board.
Yeah, I feel like even if somebody's doing a ceremony in a country where it's not legal, there could be this like unconscious, like, I hope no one like arrives while I'm in the middle of ceremony. This like, feeling of unsafety, just because like someone out there might be after me, for sure. Did you bring your? I know you guys were working with curandero, a shaman in the jungle. Does he come facilitate for you, or do you have? Are you guys the lead facilitators now?
Yeah. So for us, we have found here's the thing. We honestly feel very fortunate of to have the teachers that we've had in the family lineage we've had, it's been paramount to us finding our own way. One of our primary teachers, Don Rono, he is very, very powerful of the heart, very loving, very open. He himself has always been very curious to learn. And so as students of his, and he's always been very encouraging and supportive of, hey, the reason why you're here training is to be able to go out and share your medicine with everybody. And so through our learning, through our training, we've basically learned, we've had the great opportunity to work with a teacher who's taught us to follow our own teachings in our own, I'm not sure how much you know about that, but in the Shipibo tradition, there is a very heavy emphasis placed on connecting with your plants, connecting with your plant diets. And we could explain more of that later, but that basically means that you're choosing plants to learn from, that to teach you. And so we've always been directed to learn from the plant, learn from the diet or the plant diet. And so for Michael and I, who have definitely both in our own individual histories on this planet and in these bodies, we both are very independent in our thinking and our inspiration. And we've both always kind of marched to the beat of our own drum. And that's been part and parcel of who we are as souls. And we know that that's what we're here to do, is to follow our own truths, even when it doesn't align with what is on the outside, or even when it doesn't align with the tradition, or even when it doesn't seem to have approval or acceptance from the collective of humanity. We just always continue to check in with ourselves. For us, what's true for us, what's true for us. So we're fortunate to have had a teacher who has guided us towards that same thing with the plants. That being said, in our 7 years, collectively 14 years of training, we have just what has come through our training and our practice and our work in this tradition is just to continue to perpetually bring through our own medicine, bring whatever that looks like, however it evolves. And through that, we have found that it's important that we're leading our own ceremonies, that we're sort of guiding the structure of how a retreat works, that we're taking the foundations of the tradition and we're expanding on them. And we're working with them with our own sort of blueprint of how that wants to come through. And it doesn't always look like the tradition, but it does look like our truth. And so with that, we feel like it's truer to us to be leading ceremony ourselves, to be guiding the direction and the structure of the retreats. And because also Michael and I are so strongly intuitive and channels in our life and work, we also set, the structure of a tradition can be there, but for us, it's nothing compared to the intuitive information that's around a person, or the specific needs or desires or healing of a specific person. And so when we work with an individual or a group of participants in a retreat, we're going to that person's intelligence. We're looking at their field of intelligence above all things. And so that doesn't always align with the rules of a tradition or the dictates of a tradition. So for us, that's of the utmost importance. And so when we're working with an individual or a group of people, we're putting their intelligence, their heart, their love, their path, their purpose, their healing first. And we're allowing the plants and spirit and whatever you want to call it, the intelligent field, to show us how to be in service to that. And that looks very unique and different for every person and every retreat. And so for us, that seems to have a priority. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say, working with our teachers is very much like learning to drive a car.
That's a good one.
And then once you've learned to drive, then you really learn to drive when you're out on the road, and you learn how that vehicle works with you in the way that you particularly drive. So we've done extensive training. We've done extensive work in the non-dual realms with our plant spirit teachers. And in many ways, it just feels like it's been time for us to fly from the nest. And that's been something that we've been doing. We've been leading ceremonies and holding ceremonies over the last several years ourselves. But we've now just really felt like it's just like, okay, it's just time for a new chapter, and we're just ready to allow our blueprint to come through. And very much with our background, as we spoke on the last episode we did, Derek, our background in trauma-informed care and healing trauma, it's very much that we're able to bring through our experience of trauma-informed care, which very much more aligns with the Western paradigm of holistic trauma-informed care, of somatic healing, of working with the body, of looking at all of the different events which have occurred in life and recognizing that those can be healed and that one can recognize themselves as already whole. Looking at that also with the Eastern philosophies of the Qigong meditations and work that we do, along with our own non-dual teachers that we work with, and our own channelings and intuition and our own experience of healing trauma. It's really much more than a tradition. It's, if we would just, and there's absolutely amazing things to go and work with an Indigenous person and work within that tradition and get that experience. And we've done that, and it's been great. But for us, it's not been holistic in the sense that it needs to encompass all of the different life experiences and the healing of trauma that we've experienced in our understandings that we've gained from our experience and from working with others and our channelings and all of the aforementioned things. And that really feels like it needs no limits. It needs no boundaries. It doesn't need any more of a framework than what our soul's expression wishes to come through, which is built upon the foundation of ancient healing technologies that we've learned from the Shipibo tradition, but also in many different understandings that we've obtained just through doing our own work and you know, literally holding people's hand as they're healing from the deepest depths of trauma and abuse. That's not necessarily the forefront of the Shipibo tradition, but the understandings, the tools, the technologies, the working with the plants, the learning from the plants, learning to connect, learning to hold ceremony, learning those things, they're the framework that we've been able to grow from. And it's like the trellis. Now the vine is on the trellis and it's moving beyond the need for that support structure to go out and grow into a beautiful tree. And that's what we're excited about bringing, because we're not trying to be Shipibo teachers. We're trying to take the best parts of what we've experienced and have resonated with us and put that into a package that we feel is going to be absolutely important for people who want to activate their intuition, empower their healing, connect with plants, embody your truth, and also understand more about the non-dual nature of reality and move beyond paradigms which have been here on the planet for thousands and thousands of years, but actually empower people to connect with their own truth and allow that to flourish through, because that's what the world needs. The world doesn't need people continuing to do things the way things have been done. We need a paradigm shift on the planet. And I don't have the answer. James doesn't have the answer. Everyone's individual heart, soul blueprint has that answer. And it's like, how do we get people to connect with that, whether it be in business, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in non-dual practices, whether it be in yoga or meditation, whatever it is? How do we get people to start activating that truth and learn to trust it and follow it? Because that's the most important thing that you can learn, is to believe in yourself and believe that whatever is resonant for you right now is what's important. So this has been like the work that we've been doing over the last 2 years, as we've been talking about, of letting go of those identities, letting go of those thoughts about who we think we are. And something, in our opinion, at least, much more beautiful is sprouting. And that's what we're super excited to share with people as we go back out into the world.
I can tell this is, you're so passionate about this, and I love it. And I'm thinking of in my own experience, like, knowing you're ready to lead, and also there have been times when I'm like, do I have enough training? Do I have enough skill to go and do this on my own? Or especially in ceremony, like what if something goes wrong? Like what if somebody like has a psychotic break, or like I can't bring them back to their body, or like what how did you know you had enough uh training, but also just personal power to be able to hold a ceremony space?
I would say one of the experiences are, whilst through the training, having multiple of experiences, whilst being with mentors, thinking, I can't do this, and them saying, yes, you can, and then going beyond all of those limiting beliefs. That is so through experience of helping people, through years of experience of already holding ceremonies outside of the realms of our mentors with their blessing and also the stick that's like, go and do it. You just got to go through it. So those years of training and pushing through that, there's a confidence, there's a knowing that arises. And why is that? It's because Jamie and I, and this is not unique to us, but we have such faith in our ability to connect to our higher selves, to the plant spirits, to our galactic friends and guides. We know we don't need the answer. We're not in ceremony opening a book and being like, okay, psychotic break, what should we do on mat number 3? That it's like, that would be like so it's kind of like learning how to like trust, and in those instances, it's the same, I imagine, as what it would be like for any soldier or firefighter or police or medic or whatever might be in an emergency situation, that there is that faith within the training, that there's the muscle memory, and then there's also that connection to the higher self. It's like, I know, there's no doubt there in that moment. There's no room for doubt. So it's that ability over and over and over and over again to overcome doubt. Doesn't mean there doesn't need to be doubt there, just because you can do things, that doubt can arise, fears can arise in situations, in anything that we do, but it's that trust to know what the truth is, to connect to that truth and to follow that truth, and for that to carve the path forward. On the other side of things, is very practical human things to do. Like, we have a really, really good intake form. We have a really, really selective process, and selective meaning that we make sure that no one's first do no harm. So anyone who comes and works with us, if you're going to be susceptible perhaps to having a psychotic break throughout medicine, that we would feel like that beforehand based upon either medications or pre-existing conditions, we would honestly say to you, this is not the right work for you. However, you don't need ayahuasca to heal. And we also provide all of our other different offerings, which we connect to the spirit of the plants and channelings, and are able to provide healings and opportunities for people to heal without working with the medicine. We also work with people who are perhaps highly traumatized and are not necessarily yet ready for the medicine, to be able to work with them in an online setting or an in-person setting where we do healing ceremonies without people taking medicine, and do work with people to help get past that perhaps deep level anxiety or PTSD that kind of takes the edges off that trauma, so that they're more suitable to be able to work with us. So we also have absolute faith in our intake process. And we also have absolute faith in that whatever arises, we will be with our plant spirit teachers, Noya Rao, Blue Lotus, and other plants that we work with, that we will be there with them as conduits for them to do the healing. So we just have to open to allow the magic, the healing, the wonder of spirit to work through us. So it's like, okay, I don't have to know it all. Yeah. I don't need that book for mat 3. It's not necessary. It's just, how can I continue to be an open channel? And this is what it looks like. It looks like in day-to-day life, being willing to look at your own trauma, being willing to continuously clear yourself from unconscious patterns and behaviors, limiting beliefs, being absolutely dedicated 100% in service to all, and putting everyone else's welfare at the absolute highest confidentiality, safety, security, integrity, and having that as a mantra, and allowing those values to dictate everything that happens, so that we're always in alignment to everyone's highest healing and evolution. And we have absolute faith in that.
Mm.
And that's what allows us to do this work.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
And Derek, are you okay if I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. That you nailed it, by the way, as far as I feel it. The other thing I'd just like to add into this with the question that you asked, I came to the tradition of curanderismo, or the Shipibo tradition of curanderismo. I had already had about 6 years of professional experience as an intuitive medium. And so with, basically connecting to the unseen subtle energies or the multidimensional realm without the use of an entheogen or a plant medicine. And so in that work, and this also applies to anybody who does what, I'll just, for the sake of not having a better word, anyone who does healing work. And when I say healing work, I think sometimes people think of like, massage or Reiki. And these are, yes, of course, or therapy or counseling or, yoga instructors, but it's also anyone who, Derek, I researched you and your work and your podcast and looked into see what is Derek all about, so I would refer to you as a healer, because the work that you're doing is you're allowing yourself to be open to the highest good, healing, and purpose of other people, and empowering them to step into those truths, right? And stepping into that truth can have a physical, emotional, or mental effect of healing. And so sometimes people think of healing as, oh, it's just something for the body. No, it's when we step into knowing ourselves better, and that can be through the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, whatever plane that is, and whatever service that person's providing as a healer. So when you ask that question, and Michael's talking about trusting, having faith that I don't have to know exactly what's going to happen. And I don't have to have exactly in place. Okay. Like you said, chapter 3, what do I do when someone has a psychotic break? But I trust in that moment that the infinite abundance of loving intelligence is available to me should I decide to be connected to it or attentive to it or aware of it or receptive to it, and that it knows what's needed. And that I don't have to. All I have to do is be attentive to it and connect to it. And, just specifically in plant spirit healing and ayahuasca ceremonies and a healing retreat that we would do, we would be consciously working with the spirits, the intelligent, loving spirit of the plants, who we also see as doctors. Plants are so symbiotic with humans and like knowing us and reading us and being so specific to our needs. So in a ceremony situation, Michael and I are going into that ceremony consciously setting our intention of, we're here in service of the highest good, healing, and purpose of all these participants. And we trust that spirit and the plants know exactly what everyone needs. And so we're opening ourselves to be a channel for that to make its way through. We're kind of like, we say sometimes we're kind of like the human ground plane team for spirit in the plants. We're the physical face of them in those moments. But also in an intuitive reading, if I'm working in an intuitive reading online with no entheogens, just connecting to the unseen subtle energies, it's the same thing. I may be having a client or working with someone. I haven't met them before the session. I don't know who they are, but nor do I need to. I don't need to have any of that information. I don't need to always know all their background. I just open myself. Spirit sees them and knows them. And that intelligence sees all of us and knows all of us and is always present and is always sort of pulsating with like, it's here to help, always here to help. And so all we have to do is sort of like kind of set ourselves aside for a second and just allow that intelligence to be present and sort of feel into it, connect to it, or just very directly hear it, see it, know it, and then communicate it with that person or bring that energy through. But again, all of us can do this, and all of us are doing this, whether consciously or unconsciously, in the work that we're doing. And sometimes we can feel it more than other times of like, holy smokes, that session I just did was the bomb. I feel like it was so easy. It flowed. It just came right through. It was like, I just was going with it. Those moments when anyone has that, that's what you're doing. You're letting go of the ego. You're letting go of the mental constructs of it has to look like this and follow this thing. And if not, we're going to get in trouble. You just, okay, soften that just a little bit. and let that flow come through. And you can feel it when you step on it. And it's anybody doing any work. So really, I think it's this opportunity, kind of like Michael said, of any of us, not just plant spirit healers, not just Reiki energy healers, any of us doing any work, we're having this really fantastic invitation and opportunity right now to go a little deeper, to connect with what's already there, beyond the research, beyond the studies, beyond the encyclopedias, beyond what's known to be acceptable, because there's definitely that as well. And it's not to not honor those things, but it's to honor the deeper, more vast, loving intelligence that's present and interconnects all of us. And that's, again, pulsating like the beating heart. And so all of us at this moment in time are having this invitation, or this, maybe this pull, and some of us are more resistant or easier, or have an easier time resisting than others. And some, everyone's got their own timing with it, and it's all perfect. But yeah, there's an opportunity there for any of us to be doing that, to be allowing an intelligence to work through us and complement all of the book smarts we have.
Yeah, thank you for that expanding. And I am aware in my asking of the question that I'm like, give me the steps, give me the booklet, like my own wanting to know what's the process if someone freaks out or whatever. And hearing you talk about it, like, yes, of course, that's the way to do it, is just to, like, whatever needs to happen, facilitate that. And I can tell you guys I can just hear your experience of trusting, allowing, knowing what the right thing to do is. And it's so interesting. I put a poll on my social media. What should we teach our kids that's going to make the biggest difference in changing the world? And the most common response was learning to trust themselves. And I think you said, Michael, belief in ourselves is one of the most important things. And so everyone's, understands that to some degree. And it's hard. Actually, later today, I'm talking with the school principal of my kid's school, because I'm proposing a new, like, program for kids to try to. I'm calling it Cosmic Intelligence. It would be piggybacking on Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, of which there's 8 sort of already described, but this would be at the 9th intelligence. If you were to give any advice for, like, how to teach this to young kids, either like belief in oneself, or like what sort of practices they could do to increase their trust in the universe or awareness in their higher selves, I don't know, any suggestions or ideas?
One comes through just sort of intuitively right when you're talking. I feel like oftentimes kids have their own answers, and that question would be beneficial to be asked to the kids, that they have their own answers. And oftentimes we think, because we've been so sort of conditioned through our own individual and collective lives to look for the authority outside ourselves, like that. If they were asked that question, they would probably have their own answers, and they might teach their own cosmic course.
Yeah, of course. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
And from my side, I would say learning to be still or to meditate. And what arose when that came through is myself remembering being in school, or a young child in school, and feeling awkward being quiet, or that if I wasn't able to talk to someone or interact with someone, feeling like I need to interact with someone to be accepted, to be validated. But the other side of that feels like teaching the ability to connect within and to be comfortable with that stillness. Because when I started learning meditation many years ago, it was so difficult to be with myself, to be still. So I think if we can teach that being still and the benefit of that, as what Jamie was saying, then those answers will automatically to begin to arise from that infinite intelligence that resides and is each and every one of us.
Yeah, and I notice the difference between like if my kids have been playing outside for a while versus if they've been playing on their tablet, computer games, like uh, how easy or hard is it for just to like sit there in silence, just sitting on the steps, just kind of, or needing to like see what the next thing is. So yeah, thank you for that. Asking the kids, I love that idea. Cool. I have just a series of just like clarification questions. Maybe could you define non-duality real quick, perhaps? Because you brought that up a couple times.
Yeah, from my perspective, from our perspective, it's the recognition as the oneness at the nature of all things. So duality being a version of separation, or seeing duality being two things or many things, and then just seeing non-duality really being oneness, one thing, seeing that there is one source of creation, one source of all things. So that you and I talking here, Derek, are not actually separate beings. It's the illusion or the image of us being separate beings. But the non-dual aspect of that is connecting to the oneness of all things, which doesn't mean that you have to not see the duality in things. You can see the duality. You can see that, okay, I'm Michael, I have a separate body, Derek has a separate body, and we're interacting here. But to be able to see and recognize that oneness, that you yourself are oneness expressing yourself through this individuation, so that you can see that the duality can still be there, but it's recognition, seeing beyond that to the oneness of all things. Why is that important? From our understanding, that's the truth of all things, the truth, a truer nature of reality, and being able to see beyond the illusion enables us to have a deeper understanding of the true reality and allow ourselves to express that oneness, that non-duality through our expression to others. It also has a great benefit when working in the nature of plant spirit curanderismo or shamanism or plant spirit healing. As when we're looking at the aspects of trauma, we also apply the non-dual teachings to that, to seeing the nature of all things as oneness, which then removes separation from the experiences, which becomes more empowering in the experience, which changes people often through the experience of working with us, applying these techniques in this particular realm to move beyond the victim mentality, which there's nothing wrong with. I've been there and I continue to be there. Sometimes I'm not like, okay, I'm not a victim anymore. There's definitely times, Jamie will tell you, where I'm a victim. There's no doubt about that. So it happens, but it's that ability to become empowered, to be able to see through that, to be able to be the captain of your own ship, if you will, in terms of your own journey here on planet Earth. So really, to underline it, the oneness of all things.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
I think I keep getting sort of nudged to speak also just in terms of like an intuitive practice, whether someone's just doing an intuitive practice for themselves or someone's, working with their intuitive abilities or multisensory abilities, again, in service to others through whatever vocation or practice that is. And another sort of tangible demonstration of this non-duality is that, and that I see often in my work, all of us have a different sort of, I want to say, a soul signature of beings or energies or traditions or landscapes that we resonate with. And what I always kind of see spirit show me in this case to describe it is basically they reference it as the many faces of God. And whether you like that word God or not, it matters not. You can substitute any word or sound or clicking noise, whatever you want to make to whatever that thing is that is intertwined in the fabric of beingness and that we're all just sort of part of. But the many faces of God. And so for instance, and I sometimes call this our spirit teams. Like for me, I've got two spirit friends that apparently, in my perception, I've incarnated with in other lifetimes, and they hang out with me in the telepathic spiritual realm. And then over here, I'm a big fan of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And then sometimes Kuan Yin beeps in and has a great sense of humor and teaches me something about myself. And then other times a tree will come out of nowhere. And Michael's got his own, what I would call, spirit team. And when I do work with him or for him, I see all of them and I'm like, oh my God, and they're very different. He's got a lot of cosmic friends. And then when I work with clients, same thing, everybody's got their own beings, and it's like, there's no better or worse. Archangel Michael, someone who's like, I solely work with Archangel Michael, is like fantastic. That person must be like completely aligned and resonant and work with it, and great. But Archangel Michael's available to everybody. Nobody cannot not connect with Archangel Michael. These beings and these spirits and these many faces of God are available to everybody. And we just kind of pick and choose. If one day God to me looks like a doorknob and that resonates with me, and I'm like, I am literally channeling that doorknob today, it's like, so be it. And it's not better or worse than an Archangel Michael. And it's so funny. I can feel people being, oh my gosh, oh my, do not compare a doorknob to Archangel Michael. But then I can feel Archangel Michael getting a kick out of this description, so it's like all are one and the same. If one day Kuan Yin is who I resonate with, and the next day it's my passed over dog Zilker, who went back to spirit 8 years ago, and he's got wisdom for me. Someone else's ego might be like, well, the spirit of the dog is no match for Kuan Yin. And Kuan Yin is here, and she's like, who's saying that? Like, she's learning from the dog right now. So it's like that non-duality is just like, it's all equal. Even us as humans here, sometimes our ego wants to tell us we're superior, we're inferior. Ego rarely is like, oh, I'm on equal level with everyone and I'm at peace. That's not ego's voice. So ego has this thing sometimes where it wants to make us either inferior to spirit, or because of the spirits we're connecting with, we're superior, or we should, think highly of it. No, it's just like the non-duality is that even here in our human bodies experiencing in this sort of finite physical experiences, these eternal souls, we're also having a brilliantly godlike experience that's on par and equal to any being that's in the metaphysical realm, or any name we want to give it, the 5th density, the 6th density, the 12th density. Does anybody know about that? It's like, well, it's all equal. So that's the non-duality behind it. So we don't have to get caught up in, is this better? Is this worse? Oh, this is more important. This isn't this profound. Oh, I want to have this knowledge and not that knowledge. It's like everyone's got their own path, and it's all beautiful, and it's all expressing so uniquely and individually through all of us. And it's all relevant. It's all legitimate. And even the times that we feel like we're having the worst day, yesterday morning, worst day I've had in a long time, just, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What's going on? What am I going through? In that, I'm, bringing in a practice of, this too is love. This too is it. This too is the intelligence. And so even while I appear to be, or I'm experiencing suffering, I'm like, the suffering also has its intelligence and its love in it. And even if I can't feel it, I'm starting to maybe trust that a little bit more. So even in those very human moments, we're still brilliantly part of all of it, and a perfect expression of God or the oneness.
This is great. I'm learning a lot from you guys. Thank you. Jamie, are you from South Carolina? Where are you from?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Got a little bit of a twang still.
Yeah, sure.
Can you see my spirit team? Do you like? Is that something you can give me a hint about?
Well, Derek, let me just first see if I have your permission to look in and see if I see your spirit team. Is that you giving me permission to look?
Yes. Yeah. Please.
Okay. And I just make that discernment because I'm not sitting over here looking at you without your express permission. All right, Derek, I'm just going to be silent for a few moments, and I'm just going to kind of go within and see who comes forward. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Derek. So the first energy that comes forward and shows me itself is, I'm going to reference it as your higher self. Okay. And this is just a term I use. There's lots of words that we can use to describe this, but I would say it's your oversoul. If you wanted to kind of reference the raw material or the law of ones, like, okay, it's your sixth density self. It's that part of you, that beingness of you that's always present here with you, interconnected with you, that's streaming you, your soul blueprint, that has all the knowledge, wisdom, and experience of all your lifetimes, all the spaces between lifetimes. So it's basically you in spirit. It's you in the vast knowing, the absolute comprehensive knowing of your own loving intelligence. Okay. So it's that you that has no question or concern about your wholeness. Okay. And it also knows and feels and sees your beingness and what you're doing here, and sort of what you're here on this planet or in this incarnation to sort of like be playing out and all this stuff. So your higher self comes forward, and it's so funny because you show me your higher self comes forward and grows very tall above you, and you're standing like this, like, and you're kind of
Superhero pose.
yes, but you're kind of like, you've got on, I want to say, sort of like forest boots. And even though you're growing taller than the forest and the trees, you're definitely standing in a forest, and you're kind of showing yourself like a lumberjack, or kind of like that energy that may be sort of like this archetype of the lumberjack of like, I'm a protector of the forest, or I'm a protector, or I stand for nature, but I see trees. So again, when we talk about, sometimes I talk about a nature signature around somebody. Some people are very aligned with like the desert or cactuses or rivers or oceans. For some reason, I see you planting yourself in and above a forest. And then there's a funny kind of comical thing going on. You've got a little blue jay that just flew and landed on your shoulder, like a little, okay, and I'm getting corrected. It's a blue bird, because I think a blue jay has a little bit more character and like a mohawk in its feather feature, but this is more of a blue bird. So it's
Which
just
is
kind
the
of
state bird here where I live. So.
So it lands on your right shoulder, and it feels really sweet, and it feels like it's going like whistling to you in your ear, these sweet little sort of conversations. And it feels like it's your, some people in character, or some characters in movies have like an eagle land on their shoulder, and we're all like, oh my gosh, the master of the eagle, or a dragon. Oh God. The bluebird feels like it's your power animal or your animal ally. And it feels like it has a knowledge or understanding of the forest, but as a being of the forest. And it also feels like it has sort of this softness about it. I don't know much about bluebirds, but it's also kind of showing me that it has a sort of emphasis towards a mate, like that it's not off on its own being an eagle flying through the sky, soaring, that it's very aware of all of the layers of the forest. It's very aware of all the beings of the forest. It also prefers company, prefers partnership. So there's this very sort of, I want to say sort of softness, or very aware of all the others that also are in the forest. And where like the eagle may soar out above all things and have this big bird's eye view, the bluebird's showing me it has a very in-depth knowledge of the inner workings of the actual forest, that it doesn't need to fly high above it, that it's part of it, and that that's its power or its strength or its love. And so it feels like that may be a signature that's aligned with you. I also see your higher self showing me again standing tall, that you feel yourself or perceive yourself to be a steward of the forest, or a sort of protector or nurturer of the forest, because the lumberjack, what I'm being shown, the lumberjack may go through the forest and may cut down a tree here or there, but selectively, and with a vast knowledge of the forest and understanding, this tree over here looks like it's decaying a bit in this lower side, and it doesn't look like it's going to be able to recover from this point. So we would benefit the forest, and this tree would be a benefit to the people with wood, firewood, building material, to go ahead and cut this one down. But as we cut it down, we need to be sure that we're attentive to what's living in the tree, and we need to see where it's going to fall, and we're going to need to make sure there are no humans around. So it feels like this very sort of attentive to, similar to the bluebird, to all beings, to all creatures, to everyone who's there in the forest. But it also feels like it's a caretaking role or a stewardship role. But then the lumberjack also has more of that sort of masculine energy of like, there are things to do. So there's action to take, and there's protection to give. So like where the forest may not be able to speak for itself in terms of the human collective, it may not be able to show up at the table and actually have a voice. The lumberjack energy that's showing itself to me through your higher self is showing I have a voice for the forest. And so I'm just going to pause there before that continues, Derek, because I always like to see how that's resonating with you or not.
Yeah, that's so interesting you said that. There's two things, and Michael, we might have even talked about this. I have my own tree that gave me this sort of mission that I encountered. It's maybe like an 800-year-old tree in Bali that gave me this mission to take people out into the forest. That's when I started my adventure quest trips, because it was like, you need to bring leaders into the forest so that they can, re-experience themselves as part of nature rather than separate, the whole non-duality thing, I guess. And Jamie, I've also had visions of myself, maybe like a previous lifetime, as like a tribal elder, perhaps in this same location in Missouri, in the forests, of the keeper of the forest, or like the storyteller for the forest. And I would do these in my visions, I would do these like really long runs, like 100 miles of running, and just like sensing the forest, and like just checking up on everything, and then coming back and like telling stories around the fire of like what I had seen and experienced. So that feels in alignment what you're saying.
Derek, that's awesome. And I'm kind of giggling inside, because when you say that you've had that vision of seeing yourself running, I've seen things like that before. And especially it feels like people who are have lifetimes as Indigenous people or Native Americans. It seems like there's this thing where people run long distances to map out or have a sensory perception of an area, to be able to relate it back to their community or tribe. But I always see it as runners. But it's sort of like, as you're running through the forest or through the landscape or through the terrain, there's sort of like an intuitive mapping or a sensory thing going on, that then you're able to take back and share that wisdom and seeing, that far seeing through the running. For some reason, I know what you're saying. It's like 100 miles. It's like, and I also sometimes see bare feet, 100 miles, so that's really fascinating. How interesting.
Yeah. And I'm just like imagining running through the forest. It's like when you're running through the forest, it feels like it's just flying by you effortlessly, and it's like you're not running too fast, but you're just like moving seamlessly through the forest. It's such a magical feeling. I do that in this lifetime as well, which is, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, thank you for that. It sounds like perhaps there was more you had to share.
let's see here, Derek. I'm basically asking your higher self from within. I'm saying, do you have anything left for Derek here?
Mm.
So just one moment here. I'll just be silent for a few moments. Okay, apparently you've got a good sense of humor, Derek, because the what you do is you're standing, your higher self is standing again with sort of arms or fists on hips with this sort of superhero pose. And then you just stuck your right arm up in a flex, and then you pointed that way, but you're showing me your muscle. Okay. And you're like, the forest is that way, but you keep showing me your muscle. So there's bear with me. Sometimes, sometimes people have a good sense of humor, and apparently you do. So the message you're showing me through this sort of comedy is you're showing me, it's kind of like you're telling me like, hey, yeah, like a little strength is beneficial, but then you're also like making the joke about it. You're like, I mean, not too much. Let's not go overboard. Like you're like, the superhero pose is enough. Like that sort of like pose embodies and shows the strength, but you're like, having a little bit of muscular strength. You're just showing me to show you, like, you're like, yeah, do it. Why not? Good idea. Like maintain the strength, maintain the musculature. But you're like, you're kind of making a joke. You're like, let's not go overboard here. This isn't, there's no need for bodybuilding. We don't have to have this, it's more like it feels like a strength that feels good in the body. I think sometimes when we see musculature or when these things come through about fitness or physical health or what, sometimes, the collective culture is so focused on the appearance of this. This is not what this is. I can feel it in the body of like feeling good that the arm feels like it has some strength. And then you're like, you just keep showing me, you're like, I mean, let's not take this too seriously though. So it just feels like a little sort of like nudge or permission to like, yeah, be strong, but like, it doesn't have to be what the mind sometimes thinks it has to be. It just, you want to feel strong in the body.
That's really interesting and also very timely. I've been using the gym and lifting weights for the first time, sort of prioritizing it above my bike racing, which I've done for many, many years. It's one of those things where it's like part of my identity. I'm like, I'm just a bike racer and I love it. And thinking about not racing part of the year is kind of like, a little bit of faith. But then I'm, in the gym and feeling strong and I can carry both kids, one in each hand. It's still, and it's like, this is great to be able to do this. But I put on my shirt today. This is like one of my favorite custom tailored shirts, and I'm like, it's getting a little tight. Like, God, don't want to get too many muscles I can't wear wear my favorite shirt. So, yeah, how about that?
So that's it. That's what's come through. It's kind of like scene.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is fun. Thank you, Michael, for letting us explore that, being patient.
Of course, I'm here amused also.
Last time we got some channeling from Michael, which was super cool, and that kind of kicked off actually. Perhaps you were the first person to do some channeling on the show. We've had maybe 5 or 6 more people doing it live on the show, which is really, I like to be able to share that.
Awesome.
And I still personally, I guess I don't have as much skill with like pulling in my own channeling or intuition or knowingness. So I'm still often relying on people like yourselves to like give me information. I think at some point I'll hone those a bit more or like get out of the way a little bit more. But it's nice to have other people that can just like see aspects that I can't see.
Well, and Derek, oftentimes, and I'll see this in sessions, and it sounds like just even kind of some of the feedback you've given on what came through for you. Oftentimes, I feel like spirit shows things that people already are aware of, and it's like spirit's way of sort of confirming or affirming you already are paying attention. You already are connecting with those things that are for you. You're already there, and it's like spirit's just showing oftentimes. We see it. We're just affirming it. You're on it. You're connected. You're doing that thing that's true for you. And so oftentimes in an intuitive reading, anybody that is like, oh, wow, that's how I was already thinking that, or I was already feeling that, or that just happened yesterday. It's sort of spirit's way of going, like giving you a wink of like, you're connected, continue
Cool.
on.
Yeah. I need a lot of that, like, confirmation. Keep going. I'd love to talk about plants a little bit, plant teachers. You mentioned Noya Rao, which I believe is a single tree, and then you mentioned blue lotus, which is a variety, a species. What's it like to learn from a tree or a lotus? How does that come to be a teacher?
Well, that's a great question. Beginning with, again, as we've talked about, the foundations of what we've been studying and learning in the Shipibo tradition, learning from a tree or a plant is the foundation of the work to become a curandero, which is a word that sometimes is known as shaman, or as we say, curandero, plant spirit healer. The university of becoming a curandero is to learn directly from the plants. Similar as we were talking about with the teaching course, the cosmic course for the kids that you're bringing through. The teaching here is learning to be quiet and learning to connect to the tree or the plant as the teacher. Now, this process, which traditionally occurs, is something that a teacher will say, think this plant. There will be ayahuasca ceremonies as well, but go into isolation and learn from the plant. However, there's not often a roadmap that's given. So it's kind of like, just go out into the wilderness without a map, and hopefully you'll find yourself there. And over time, maybe you're spending 2, 3, 4 years, you'll find your way. Absolutely valid path. And for some people, that may be the preferred method, because there's definitely certain teachings that come there. However, from us, we've created a roadmap to help people learn to connect to those plant teachers in a dieta setting, a dieta being a period of time where people come to us or another teacher and are able to be in isolation with ayahuasca ceremonies in a retreat setting, drinking and connecting with a given plant teacher, in our case, Noya Rao or Blue Lotus. And through that roadmap, we aim to catalyze, to accelerate the experience, the learning how to connect to that teacher. Why? It's not to bypass any lessons. It is so that you can start learning from a plant directly yourself. So spending less time wandering around, perhaps sometimes aimlessly in the wilderness, looking for the direction, we've created a roadmap to help people connect and begin to learning straight away from the teacher. Because again, Jamie and I are not the teachers in every aspect. We have a lot to share, and a lot of our teaching is about empowering you to recognize that all of the information, all of the wisdom is contained within. Learning from a plant teacher, coming back to the non-dual aspect, is another way, or is a stepping stone to be able to connect to the infinite intelligence. Now, depending on where you want to meet that plant teacher, you can do this from a more dualistic perspective, which is valid, or we can also take a quantum leap to the non-dual aspect and look at learning from a plant teacher to recognize that everything is being shared from that plant teacher is also accessible to you through your higher self, yet the plant is a perfectly constructed mirror for you to be able to see yourself more clearly in that moment. Why is it also beneficial? Because especially when we're first starting out to learn to connect to spirit, to start doing some of this non-dual work, i.e. recognize the oneness of all things, sometimes it can be really beneficial to have a concentrated point of focus, which is what the theater is, where you focus on that one particular aspect of creation, in these contexts, Noya Rao or Blue Lotus, and allow divine creation to express themselves through that connection with the plant. And again, you can stop there, or you can then integrate that and recognize that everything that those plants are teaching is a reflection of my own true self through that interaction with that plant. That's where it becomes really empowering to be able to use plant spirit teachers to heal, to learn about oneself and the true nature of reality. So we have learned from various different plant teachers, and Noya Rao and soon to be Blue Lotus, what we'll be offering soon, or should be offering soon, will be the closest representation to what we believe of plant teachers that are here and designed to help activate your intuition and embody your own truth. When plant teachers are put on a pedestal, when plant teachers are then used to disguise the truth, i.e., implement limitations, there's been a step that has been missed, which reinforces the idea of separation, which in the aspect of non-duality and creation and learning about the infinite truth of all things is perfectly beneficial, because you need to see how limited you think you are to realize that you're not limited. So learning to move through that can be the breaking of those bonds of karma, of separation that have been influencing us for millions and millions of years. The opportunity, the invitation now is to see yourself as infinite and allow yourself to embody that beyond limitation. This is stuff that we learn from the plants that you will learn in your own way, in your own set and setting. Our experience here is not to teach you what the plants will teach you. Our environment that we provide, which we're now actually offering our ayahuasca retreats and our Noya Rao Blue Lotus to even more intimate settings, which we believe will be 3 or 4 people in our new retreat setting, which is going to be even more personalized learning, even more opportunity for solitude to be able to learn how to connect. Provide a safe setting in high integrity with an opportunity for you to learn to receive this wisdom intelligence yourself, not just for the duration of being here with us, but a foundation. We're going to help you learn to drive so that when you go home back to your own country or place, wherever that is, you can start driving the car with the vehicle that you've learned to drive on your own particular journey, whatever you've got to share with the world. It's all in service to all, service to others, i.e., what work we do here is for expansion and growth for the personal and collective experience. We want to help you to become a conduit, whether you're a business leader, whether you are someone who is a CEO of a company, or whether there's someone who is a healer or a podcast speaker or whatever it is. We're here to help you activate your own intuition and soul's blueprint through the medium of plant spirit healing in personal retreats and also through our online programs. However, coming and doing work with plant medicine in person is the quantum leap. That is the stuff that changes life. Well, it transforms lifetimes in short periods of time. And the unpacking of that learning experience can continue for several years, and it can just be like a rocket fuel boost for you to go through your own personal transformation. So you might notice that we're advocates of that. So that's what we're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell. So, and you're not, so an ayahuasca retreat, if you're learning from Noya Rao, but you're not, so ayahuasca comes from a vine or a couple other plants, not from the Noya Rao tree itself. Is that right?
Correct. Do you want me if I continue?
Yeah, continue.
So ayahuasca mixed with chacruna is the ayahuasca mixture that we use, which is the pure mixture, which is the safest form of working with ayahuasca. And just to add on from another point before, we were talking about how do you know what to do, we also have absolutely strict and thorough safety protocols that go throughout all of our retreats. So we also have written down ways that we work with people for all eventualities that occur on retreat. Working with pure ayahuasca and chacruna mixes is one of the deepest safety protocols to enable that pure experience. What ayahuasca does is open a portal to the multidimensional realm. And when we say a portal, it's just so that you can enter through it and experience it. It's always already there. The ayahuasca realm definitely has its own flavor. So whilst you are entering into the multidimensional portal through plant spirit healing, through ayahuasca and chacruna, then you enter into the realm of plant spirit healing. Now, Noya Rao and Blue Lotus are two beings which within their worlds and realms have multiple beings that you can learn to access through the portal of ayahuasca. So we use and work with ayahuasca as a portal to connect to other plant spirits, as well as the spirit and the medicine of ayahuasca. So there's two different ways that we work with people. We have our plant spirit healing retreats, which we are currently revamping and will be on our website soon. So if you're interested in any of this and you get this podcast before it's on our website, please just send us a message through our website and you can just come onto the waiting list for our new retreats. But we're going to be having around about 10-day retreats, which are going to be ayahuasca focused, where we'll be working with other plants, but you're not learning from the plants like we're describing in a theater setting. You'll obviously be learning, but in a way that is focused on healing of trauma and evolution. In the theater setting, this is where you go into the isolation or the solitude with the plant spirit of Noya Rao or Blue Lotus. And this is where you learn to activate your own blueprint through the healing tradition of plant spirit healing in the theater setting, which is based throughout the foundations of the healing technologies which have been present throughout the Shipibo tradition for thousands and thousands of years and many generations. So whether you're feeling like you want to come with us and do a longer program of doing a theater to learn specifically from Noya Rao or Blue Lotus, or if you're wanting to come and heal and grow with us, we have 10-day programs or also longer theater programs available. And that'll be clear, the separation of those on the website.
Can people learn from other plants like coffee or tobacco or do these plants appear as teachers when you open that portal as well, or?
Yeah, I think you're going to say something. Can I just finish off what I was going to say? And I'm going to pass over to you because I feel you got a lot of stuff to share here. So whether you're doing a theater or not, when you're working with us on a plant spirit healing retreat, you'll be working with plants and you'll be learning from plants. There's just a separation or a differentiation would be the best word between being in a theater setting and making a set agreement or space and time to learn from that plant in isolation. But we also have different plants that we work with on the retreats in our saunas or our vapor baths. We won't be learning from coffee on these retreats, but in the sense, in the ayahuasca ceremony, if you invited the spirit of coffee forth to teach you, then absolutely you could. The importance is really, what is your intention here? And that's about the polarization in a positive way into, I'm here in service to all to learn for my highest, greatest good. And yeah, many different plants will come forth and learn. We learn from many different plants that we've not ingested that present themselves in ceremony and not in ceremony to share their wisdom with us. Just like I imagine that you learn from the forest in many different ways. You're not necessarily drinking from the forest as you're going on your runs and tuning into the energy of the forest as what was coming before, but it's that connection that you're connected to all things. You don't have to ingest a plant to be able to learn from it. However, it's very beneficial to be able to do that, to catalyze that process. Over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Derek, I just love that question. So here's the thing too, as Michael and I've discussed, yeah, sure. Someone wants to bring that intention into ayahuasca ceremony and sort of have that really direct, immersive experience of okay, that's what this plant's energy is like, or that plant's energy is like. And that's also, every single one of us is entirely capable of doing this in regular daily life. I used to teach this when before I moved to Peru. I used to teach a plant spirit communication workshop, which was just so much fun. We would go out and have a place where we met in nature, and maybe 20 people show up, and just walking around and connecting with a huge 3-foot diameter oak tree, and following, and I would guide these and just kind of follow the guidance of the oak tree, how we were going to be connecting with it, and then walk over, and there's a little stand of black-eyed Susan, little flowers with all these bees around it buzzing, and it's like, okay, let's go over here and consciously connect with the energy of the black-eyed Susans and also the bees. So like, okay. And then everybody take a moment through the exercise to connect with the energies and the spirit of those plants and those beings, and then have like a feedback on it. What did you experience? What did you see? What did you feel? What did you sense? What emotion came up? And the intelligence of the spirit of those plants, and the bees for some reason keep wanting to come through. They're like, don't forget about us. I'm like, okay. The bees and the black-eyed Susans and the 3-foot diameter oak tree, and they all have a different energy about them, and they all have different messages to share. And some people receive personal messages for something that they're going through or really struggling with. Other people feel or sense a message that has to do with that whole landscape. Other people get a message that tells them something about, oh, this is going to help solve the issue or the challenge I'm having with my mom. And it's just fascinating, again, because the intelligence of all beings and spirit, and again, the many faces of God, and as they come through the plants, they can all bring us healing, and they'll meet us where we are. And so where one person might be getting information about the entire landform, another person's getting information on how to walk through this challenge with their mother. And it's the same plant, just different medicine for each person. And so it's quite a lovely thing. Anybody can go out and do this today. And one of the plants that always seems to show up is dandelion. And I think dandelion kind of makes a point of like, you think I'm a weed and you kind of look past me and overlook me, but I'm powerful. I'm so strong. You won't believe it. And you just sort of forget about me, that I exist. But here I am. And so, I know, like Michael, I'm going to joke about him for a second. He's Welsh and he loves tea. And
Yes.
in the States, we just don't have the affinity for tea like they do in the UK. But Michael really loves his plant teas, and he'll kind of feel it, just intuitively. He'll be like, today my body wants ashwagandha. Oh, tomorrow it wants jasmine. And he'll feel when a tea's calling him, or when his body is needing a tea or wanting a tea. And then like when he drinks a tea, or if I, on a rare occasion, agree to drink tea with him.
It's such an honor when Jamie drinks a tea with me. They can mark it down as one of the best days of the year.
I'm always like, why would I drink tea when there's coffee? But anyways, when I drink tea with him, Michael's always like, can you feel the jasmine? Do you feel what it's doing to your brain? And I'm like, well, hold on. Okay. So we kind of do this thing where we're like, what are you feeling from the tea? So I make that joke in that anybody has access to tea. You can start there. By anybody knows, anyone who's drinking a peppermint tea, and you can go find that at Starbucks, or you can find it in your organic natural food store. Anyone who's drinking a peppermint tea, you feel yourself wake up. You feel yourself, your attention kind of lighten up. You feel sort of like, okay, I think I'm going to stand up straighter, a little bit straighter. You feel yourself wake up. So that's a signature of that plant. And you don't have to be practicing intuitive for 10 years to know that. And so that's what I also love about plants, is they tend to have these personalities or these signatures that are really recognizable. People know that chamomile has a very sort of soothing, softening, I'm going to put a blanket around you like you're a baby. I'm going to take care of you. That's a chamomile energy. So drinking teas is also another great way to experience or connect with the spirit of plants.
Yeah, and I think just say as well, on our website, on our growth portal, we have a free meditation that people can connect to. That is a plant spirit meditation that you can just go and listen to. That you can do it while you're drinking a tea, or you can do it when you're out in nature, and it just step by steps guide you through an intuitive practice to connect to that. And also, it's interesting that you said coffee, because I remember when we were in ceremony about 4 years ago, and Jamie sang a song to me from a coffee tree. It just came up afterwards. You did.
It's true.
So
The plants they're fun.
Yeah. You're reminding me, when you're talking about peppermint, of going into the peppermint room at Celestial Seasonings Tea Factory in Boulder. It's a room like the size of a house full of peppermint. And you just go in and it's like bathing in peppermint, and eventually you start crying and you're like, oh, this is too much. But you go in and you're like, I'm ready for anything. It's great. You also reminded me of the history of why the Brits and the Welsh and everyone, why you guys drink tea, because you lost your colonies that made coffee. So you're like, we'll just do tea instead, as I recall it.
Improvising.
Yeah.
Standard.
This feels like kind of a nice place to begin to wrap. Yeah, if there's anything that we haven't expressed yet that is important, I'd love to give you guys that opportunity, or anything I haven't asked yet. Yeah, take it away, y'all too.
Yeah, I'd just like to say again, absolute pleasure to be back here with you, Derek, and so great to have you here with Jamie this time. It's been absolutely thorough and fun, and your questions are always great, and you always just hold such a great space for people to share. It's just an absolute honor to be here. So thank you so much. I'd also, just because there's been so much talk here about everyone activating intuition and being empowered, and I just want to just say, Jamie was my mentor for learning to channel and being an intuitive mentor, and really helped me on my path. And Jamie might not speak about herself like I will, just that she's an absolute amazing mentor for anyone who is looking to develop their own intuition, whether it be thought leaders, business leaders, CEOs, or healers, or whatever it may be. And she has an amazing intuitive mentorship 101 course that everyone who does it has the most amazing things to say about it. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to contact Jamie for a free consultation, or just to check out the course at casagalactica.com. And yeah, she's really, really amazing. And anyone who does that course just has absolute life transformation. So she is a blessing to the world, and so lucky to have her here with me.
Thank you.
That's great. You guys can just promote each other instead of having to do it for yourself.
Well, and Derek, when you asked that last question, any last thing that wants to come up, this is a little strange and not unexpected. And I thought too, I might be sharing something more about Casa Galactica, but I'm being nudged to speak just quickly that, and this is my own sort of intuitive understanding, and somebody else may experience this a little different, or the words may be different, or sort of the insight may be a little different. So it's one of those things, also take it or leave it, of like the last thing I just wanted to share, kind of again with connecting with plants. Plants, in my sort of perception of them, are legitimate beings. And if you could think of, like, if there were humans standing around that didn't move, like the trees and the shrubs, they're all in one place and they move, but they don't walk, but they might shift a little bit in the soil. And so their spatial need for movement is slightly different than humans that go all over the place, but still they are very purposefully here on this planet in an absolute symbiosis with humans. And I don't mean that, someone may hear that and be like, yeah, save the trees. And so I want to be clear, even though that also has its value, I'm saying this from a very sort of interconnected, very specific intelligence that the trees and the plants and the vegetation of this planet are very purposefully here with us as humans in a uniquely symbiotic relationship. You can even think of the way we exchange oxygen and carbon
Mm.
dioxide. Our in breath is the plant's out breath, and vice versa. Our out breath is their in breath, and that we're here breathing together. And so all of these plants, there's so many ways to work with them, connect with them, consciously relate to them or engage with them for healing, sustenance, um, food, vitality, medicine, energy, healing, wisdom, understanding, and that they actually are our friends. And I don't mean that in any sort of like fluffy way. I mean that quite literally, like they're here in absolute support of our human lives. And so it's a really lovely thing, whether you're drinking a tea, whether you're smelling peppermint, whether you're touching the soft velvetyness of a lamb's ear leaf, or whether you're connecting to the spirit of the oak tree, whatever way we have of connecting, or whether you're gaining healing from eating spinach and getting those vitamins and nutrients in your body. There's all sorts of ways to connect with the plants that is medicine, that is just an opportunity for any of us, or all of us, to sort of recognize that. And that although ayahuasca ceremony and working with entheogens and plant medicines is also a very viable option in terms of healing and perceiving and expanding consciousness, hanging out with a dandelion is too.
Mm. Yeah, and something accessible to everyone. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I will also say as well, because we're super excited, and our new retreat center will be going live in September this year. So we'll be opening our doors again for intimate, small 3 or 4 person ayahuasca retreats and Noya Rao and Blue Lotus dietas, where you can come and learn from us and expand on all these topics which we've spoke about today. Learn to activate and connect to your own already innate intuition, empower your healing, and embody your truth. And if anyone ever has any questions about that, we have free consultations for you to be able to connect with us. So if you feel like you resonate with us in any way, then please, feel free to reach out. And we also have our newsletter on our website, where we'll be always keeping people up to date with all of our upcoming programs. And in addition, we have a plethora of online intuitive readings, channeling sessions, trauma healing sessions, intuitive mentorship courses, which are all precursors to the work that we do in ayahuasca retreats and in our dietas. So if you want to start working with us now, there's plenty of room for us to begin to connect and just to help begin that journey of healing and evolution wherever it is that you're on your path and whatever your purpose is. We're just happy to be of service in any way that we can. And if you feel like you resonate with us, we'd be more than happy to be of assistance. So yeah, thanks so much for hearing us. And if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
And absolute pleasure to be here again, Derek. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek.
Michael and Jamie, thank you so much. And I will just say, for the listener, website is full of great information. You can spend a lot of time learning there. So it's a great resource. And yeah, it's been great to connect with you guys again, and Jamie, to hang out with you for the first time.
Yeah.
So hope to do it again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Talk soon.